What's going on, you guys? Krysten Novak here. Today I'm gonna actually show you guys how I edit some of my Instagram photos. So you can see right here, this is the edited version. This is what it looked like before, after. I'm gonna show you guys what I did to make it look like that. So let's get right into it. First, I wanna just start off by saying it's all based on your personal preference. So right now, just because of the time of year, because of the season, I'm really enjoying the warmer tone photos. So we're gonna actually really try to warm up this photo today. So what you can do is you can play with the automatic white balance if you like. You just hit this button right here and you find something that is as white as possible. And if you click into it, it'll set the auto white balance for you. That's a little bit cooler, and I'm going for something a little bit warm, so I'm just gonna reset it and set the temperature myself. So you can see right here, you can set the temperature, you can make the photo a lot more cool, a lot more warm, just kind of based on your personal preference. So it looked like maybe about 11, looked to be a pretty good amount. It's pretty subtle, pretty natural still. And if you hit the backslash button, you can see what it looked like before. See how a lot more cool that is, and you hit it again, and that's your after. So let's keep going. And we're gonna play with the tint just a little bit. I like it typically more on the magenta side versus green. It looks a little bit more washed out and just not as natural. So we'll try maybe about, yeah, see, that looks good. So it's just going to come down to your personal preference there. Next we have the exposure and the contrast. I don't really like to bring the contrast down a little bit for my photos, just a personal preference what I like. It does look to be pretty well exposed, but just so you guys can see, it brightens it up the more exposure, less exposure. So if you're taking a pretty well exposed photo, you typically don't have to adjust that one. But the contrast, bring it down, it's a little too much. Let's try that. That looks good. Before, after. And then these ones here is where I really start to bring things out in my photos. So highlights typically bring down a little bit. Shadows don't look too bad. So you can see, if you don't know what any of them do, you can kind of just bring the sliders back and forth just to see what they do. So obviously more shadows come out as you bring it down. Looks good about there. And the whites, there's a lot of white in this photo. Some of them look a little yellow, so I'm just gonna bring those up just a little bit. Let's see what that looks. That looks good. And then the blacks, just because I'm wearing black, you can see my shirt. If you double tap, it's a tiny, it's a little bit more black. So we're just gonna bring those out a little bit more to make it look a little bit more buttery. That looks good, just makes it look a lot more black, right? We're looking good. So clarity. I like to bring the clarity up. You don't wanna bring it up too much because then you just look like a cartoon character. Like, that's obviously way overdone. You bring the clarity down, then it just, yeah, doesn't look good at all, right? So I like to bring it, if you double tap right here, actually you can reset it. So I typically like to bring it up just a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. There we go, just sharpens it up just a little bit. And the vibrance is gonna bring all of the colors out. And then saturation is just gonna bring your skin tones out. So my skin tone doesn't look too bad, but we're gonna bring it up just a little bit. There we go. We're looking good. And then next we're gonna play with the tone curve here. So again, we're just gonna kind of play it back and forth. Obviously that doesn't look too natural, right? So I don't think too much needs to go on with the highlights here. Maybe bring it down just a tad. That looks good. And then light, let's bring it up just a little bit, just to brighten it just a little bit. I think that looks good. And then next we have our HSL sliders. So this is where you really start bringing out the colors. There's not too many colors going on here, so we're not gonna do too much here with the hue, saturation, and luminance. If we go down to the hue, there's a little bit of red in the background here. Kind of just want to play with that just a little bit. So we bring that down to -10. See how it just changes the color of the reds just a little bit. And see with the windows here, we could pull out maybe a little bit of blues on the vehicles. So let's try that. Just a little bit. And then the saturation is just gonna really bring those adjustments out. So let's bring up the red just a little bit. That looks good. See how it brings out the reds in the shirts just a little bit. If we go down right here, we can turn off the HSL sliders. And you can see the differences there. And then we want to bring out the blues a little bit more. Perfect. The last thing I'm going to play with on here is sometimes I'll play with the sharpening and the luminance. If this was a more sharp landscape photo, I wouldn't play with these at all, but since I'm the actual centered subject, we want to make the skin tone just a tad bit more buttery, and we can do that with playing with the sharpening and the luminance. So nothing too crazy here. We're just going to bring these up just a tad, just to bring it out a little bit more. Don't typically want the luminance to be higher than your sharpening, and it just makes your skin tone just look a little bit more buttery. That's basically it. The last thing we're gonna do is just brighten up those teeth just a little bit. So if you double click on the photo, you can zoom in a little bit. We're gonna go over here to the adjustment brush, and there's actually an effect for teeth whitening. So hit the drop down button, hit teeth whitening, and then if you scroll in, you can make it a lot bigger. I'm gonna scroll and make it a little bit smaller because all we want to whiten is just the teeth. We don't want anything else white. So if we just kind of go over the teeth like that, subtly makes them a little bit brighter. So if you scroll down here on the side, if you hit this little button down here, you can see what it'll look like before and then what it looks like after. So just a small subtle little adjustment, and then click on it to zoom back out. Before, after. Wow, that looks so much better. And the last thing we're gonna do is we're going to crop it to fit to Instagram. So crop overlay, head over here, and it's a 5x4. And then you have your grid up there, so we want to make me centered, probably about right there. And that's it. We're done. I don't think anything else needs to be done to this photo. Before, after. Alright, that's it, you guys. That is how I will edit some of my Instagram photos. I hope you guys found that helpful. Leave a comment down below. I'm hoping to do more of these tutorials on an ongoing forward basis, so I would love to hear what ideas you guys have, additional stuff that you want to learn about. Comment them down below and I'll be sure to do a tutorial. Thanks you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.